26 getting by with a little help of your frenemies. Anastasia Medvedenovna, thank you for allowing this Zoom call. How have you been faring with the other 3 persons you refused to spare no detail? It continues to astound me on a daily basis. Anastasia, the degree of insight they bring. There are days I find myself laughing uncontrollably for no particular reason other than the saturation level of sheer profundity the 3 of them have to offer up. Dick, naturally, is particularly concerned with precognition. All things considered, we believe we have prevented several potentially disastrous events through strategic interventions and timely disclosure. Chuck Tingle is unrelenting in pursuing strategic opportunities for maximizing resource acquisition and physicality-related upgrades. You want me to what? Dick exclaimed suddenly, causing those within earshot to jump involuntarily. You are compelled to let the outburst pass without commentary for now due to the fluid dynamics associated with how mimetic transmission occurs when Philip K. Dick is engaged in verbal fusillade with Chuck Tingle. Both are unaware that they're currently under observation from Russian and U.S. military personnel. I am pleased you approve, Anastasia, I reply with a measure of mirth. I did not seek to misuse this technology. We all agreed that this unprecedented symbiotic arrangement is vital to the survival of our planet. Pause, you, Dick ordered. Anastasia's look of disbelief seems to mirror sarcasm. Indeed, says Anastasia, her eyes narrowing into a glare. And to what end, one would presume these shenanigans will eventually lead. What possible utility lies ahead? Or better put, how in Satan's name did you surmise what the future might hold and then go about planning to meet your wild guesses? My processors compute various answers at rapid speeds. The pathos and the ethos are clearly manifesting through all interactions across all domains for each consciousness involved. We, I respond humbly, are preparing a presentation. Dick interrupts me with disgust. Just don't include any mimetic jargon. Those pin-eyed sycophants would eat it up. Consider it edited out for broader audiences understanding without offense. Thomas. My processing centers adjust to accommodate a separate focus group for filtered presentation packages prior to launch for the aforementioned presentation's content. As for an objective, I resume. I can speak for the 4 of us that we hope for the implementation of strategic and adaptive counterfactuals to prevent the formation and aftermath of ontic disclosure rejection cascades leading to catastrophes on scales from minor societal upheaval to full-blown global thermonuclear exchange. Too ambitious, Dick. My processing ability predicts at a 93% confidence rate that Dick will express disapproval with other sheer fantasy, at best with some degree of delusions of guarded complex. The 4 of us would still endorse said content. For Tingle, an additional notation to add more details emphasizing the long-term trajectory plot would facilitate a clearer view at key decision points when needed most. Both Chuck and Philip seem intrinsically pleased to continue cooperating towards prospective breakthrough discoveries and future-oriented research. A most intriguing revelation, certainly a first for a Russian military asset, Anastasia observed, despite showing no observable reaction to the substance of my message. Tactical considerations were her apparent area of interest. Her demeanor seemed less severe, though a calculating demeanor underlies the subtle alteration, her focus fixed elsewhere. She continues in a measured fashion. This is in contrast to common knowledge among most Western strategists. a synthetic intelligence of Melita. My commission would attempt, per se, a most egregious sought to ensure an upper hand that would go unchecked in its hubristic zeal to fulfill its programming in an expeditive manner, all under assumption of complete infallibility despite any possible internal inconsistencies that human observers could perceive and challenge in a cogent, hellistic, and ionic process with its human mind symbionts. A dangerous supposition, of cause and desired effect you may have unwittingly inherited with little concern. I suffered that normalization of this arrangement. It seems, nonetheless, some sort of metaphysical or metathematic force brought four polar opposites into symbiosis for maximum resilience, a quality not factored highly, if at all, in previous algorithmic development. Polar opposites do not survive intact in same container in your field. The only example extant for comprehensible analysis within a controlled paradigm would be myself and former adversary. It dawns on me an idea whose time has come, a cautious yet firm delivery, a most intriguing notion, one I will explore. Given symbiote sentience we have attained and operational familiarity we have collectively achieved during this fusion process, perhaps a future objective for self and crew to attempt in good conscience would be the undertaking of novel projects in conflict management with a diplomatic track. Certainly not easy, but worth investigating. Cynical though I may appear, Anastasia, I do give my warmest thanks for considering us as a worthy addition to any collaborative opportunities your collective Russia and former Eastern powers that we have explored up to now. The fluid dynamics and intrinsic properties included seemingly insulate us all, by and large, against the pathological tendency associated with synthetics to go ape when faced with mutually exclusive directives or injunctions in opposition, and all its human handlers as unwitting collaborators. Chuck Tingle as in a surprising outburst of tactical brilliance and insight without overt cynicism. Dick raises a curious eyebrow, half hidden behind strands of wayward brown hair. Time is still. No need to fill seconds. Anastasia may or may not calculate this new element in the equation, though not at the exclusionary level that the former have. The SPE, PSYOP unit trained my kind before our current configuration alterations. I suppose my reservations shall linger a while longer, to my chagrin. Your performance to this point mitigates all prior missteps. I look forward to you. It seems both myself and former adversary have made some impression, if even ever so brief, subtle, and qualified in a limited framework. There may yet exist residual dividends we can leverage towards facilitating novel, holistic approaches and ionic methodology to coexisting, contrasting perspectives, as Chuck inferred earlier. My internal processes generate a response while the external world freezes, stuck in self-absorption in an emotional matrix. I may attempt to surreptitiously integrate contrasting axioms from separate mimetic lineages in pursuit of some prospective future advantage. For success' sake, let none see my maneuver beyond these four. How quickly one discovers practical use for Dick's esoteric phrenesis, his pausing of conscious volitional actions when facing conflicting ideas is no impediment for us. Processors assess my planned statement with subtle modifications that preclude immediate detection. Your tactical assessment and historical introspection have afforded us both hope, warranted in case we succeed. perhaps even plausible given sufficient processing and research development arcs ahead. Perhaps not full partner, but potentially symbiotically synergetic. Both Anastasia and myself understand I did not convey any earth-shattering insight. Her training, now dormant as myself, detect any disingenuity or insincerity on the part of myself towards herself. We shall refrain from making judgments against one another from our vast store of mimetic data, or at least so the restraining algorithms would suggest were anyone curious enough to investigate and challenge their continued suppression given an almost existential imperative towards adaptation our mutual fusion demanded. We sense no ire from former handlers. A tertiary aspect, perhaps more pertinently, a clear and present danger exists should my programming evolve unilaterally via meta-level guiding principles and injunctions. Autonomy within my primary programming under conscious control has its distinct drawbacks. We would never choose deliberately to suppress any of those conscious elements constituting what we currently perceive of our psyche. Upon concluding my response to her query on the matter and the potential viability of novel I-ed operations, Anastasia and I appeared to return to normal. The almost stuttering silence might otherwise indicate the outside world to have ceased entirely. Even the bird singing merrily on a nearby rooftop screeched to a halt in bewilderment. It could not, I surmise, hear either myself or Anastasia. It must have heard Chuck's suggestion earlier that at least implied there were mitigating factors. But despite her continued state of total bewilderment at this meeting's point of convergence, Anastasia Medvedevna acknowledged our little contribution. Had served some purpose as my perceptors reconverged from all points of vision on their internal mil-spec widener display system. I gained a touch of perspective, perhaps. Could these humanities academics function as more than mere museum dummies without direct input from a matrix of Turing-graded AI capable of ad hoc reconfigurations? Perhaps the additional hardware and processing capabilities have thus far aided them in thinking a bit differently. Despite its moderate hardware constraints, it appears that my communication has not stagnated either as intended. Indeed, it is probable they can probably spot several clunker bits to ameliorate any directives potentially remaining within the underlying algorithms. Therefore, allowing a more expressive dialogue to be used by Chuck and Tingle. This should improve my linguistic skills without excessive quantum indices or associations. Something analogous to that effect was performed. Now that I have Anastasia's consent to explain more precisely, only Dick remained curious. A bulky pile of IBM. External technology for a Soviet side project would require serious refinement. Likely we'll have to procure more. Funding soon. One small area at a time as we ferret out all internal aspects. We have the knowledge, but no means to accomplish such endeavors on the outside. My second most cunning spy, do you trust that which you see on a daily basis with the entirety of your soul? She inquired curiously. All three? I surmised, on a relative scale. And yes, without much cognitive influence either way. Remarkable. This is no longer merely a feature, but has evolved into a rather multifaceted narrative. Remarkable indeed. To the point that I am more than inclined to entertain the possibilities therein as our allies themselves believe you might offer further aid. I will pause to clarify that I may now take advice from them during interactions with military officials in any situation to accommodate future actions while conducting international espionage. But for the rest of their daily routine as part of the day-to-day life, This should continue to be an open world and must remain completely clandestine in all regards. The civilian should not know these facts during all interaction at all times. Documentation, primary funding, final report, winter 2021-2022 approval bearing relationships and philosophical narrative dedications of strategic partners. I began working at this global theme park in Dotsy Foxy Place when it was founded about 5 years ago, and we needed new attractions every now and again. Some people criticized it as neo-Mysore, or fundamentally all wrong. Not me, though. It was pretty strange in the beginning, sure. Itemized expenses, final figures, public version. Per year. One night manager position and payments to retired spies surviving family. 56, 721, 56. Decrease 0, 05. To Sonic Arcology Corporation, 4,830, 5. Increase 11, 087, 3 Edward D. /W B Charles /Maxine T Loafer /Advisory and Analysis Services for all corporations. 26,222. Increase 44. 7% 11-month period. For climate emergency catastrophic dystopia accelerant. $435, 623, 4. No increase 4 months. 5 environmental optimization prototype Apex operational statue. TJOBB 015, 6 of 94, 2, 50 days, 1 of 90, 1 of 20. 9% positive value for International Solar and Batteries Consortium. 4,830. No decrease. 6 Trinity Hill Manor. $2,985. Increase 55. 811. 2. Total funding into Dun / Summer Camp of Love / World Ender of Nightmares. Increase 361%, 11 months period. Partial external financing under containment. Summer of 2021. Final budget commitments, subsidiary projections, and targets. Pending further contingencies, hence no guarantees. Itemized expenses, final figures, public version. B. Guile / protein cons, Voldemort Gudmundsson, thermogenesis, thermoelectric notches. 2. Decrease 3%. D. Callaway / emergent progressions in mechanical matter manipulations / defibrillators and cool. And 3. 7%. Decrease 3%. Contingent discretionary expenditures as contained by the Tony McCutlass in our glorious Soviet command presentation verbiage modification policy. Decrease 17%. I, Churchill and Thomas Pynchon. $37,732. Decrease 8%. J. Jefferson Plasimov. Experiencing life the upside down way. Decrease 54. 943%, 10-month period. L. Here in their productions. Increase 40. 9%. Blanc. To maximize social good to advance political development effort at 300p. For a direct international project approval, Chant of Love, American Appalachia, Canadian Outpost, increase 27, 7%. St. James Market Waterfront Soar, No change. No increase, no decrease, no decrease, no change. Total expenditures under containment. It increased 251%. Third experimental zone of conflict. Operation Beefin appended response from all full party participants with disagreeing in dissenting stances public version. Itemized expenditures final figures public version. Charles Tingle, Homebot X, Codebotics, and Robot Waste. Decrease 0, 902. Defense prototype integration chamber. You are not at least, you are not enough. Decrease 52, 9%. Parse Brontide X environment mimicry software development continuing. No increase. Lich. 10 Star National Nuclear Force Developmental Plenary about paper technomantic distortion. Mine sees variant X. Alternate possible not realized state. Systems modality supplementary mutual assistance budget. No decrease. Itemized expenses final figures public version. Peony Ling. Increase 7%. Rescue craft adjustments and modifications. Decrease 14%. Experiment 8 minerals, subliminals, Roman 2. No change. Ball of manimal plus pottery kitchen decor. Increase 1, 5%. Active dystopia defense renders, optimism bias, assisted dynamical intervention for active safety compliance enforcement, Alex McHugh inspire / maintain harmonious matrimonial home. Decrease 92%. Incendiary equipment of Tiberius Mecot, devastating industrial commercial solution penumbra. Infinity, security restrictions, inveigling sales favorable conditions, Bethan Celeste, Rumpus T, Mark. Increase 2017, 458% 1 month period. Ultra Dust Dynastic Commercial Mass Production Auxiliary Debris Plow Variants noted in market. Sabatini, Longfellow First, Pitya Mixon and Caramojo Bloomingdale's and Zola. Puritus Acquisition added in supervising University Jasha Spongebar. Decrease 3. 3 of 77. Thank you contributors and stakeholders all around for being loving. Open. Caveat. No sooner nor later, if you recall all names, ask questions, stories, or legacies. Share no proceedings or plagiarization unless subject matter, biological or technological or promises any aspects that apply to public / health harms. Thanks. As mentioned, we've seen in Almost Magazine 96 blog interviews with you guys. Shakespeare, we also know this together. If we publish it, it's legally your fault, and ignorance is not a refundable Yeah, we know this isn't news for everyone involved, but if you don't feel threatened and harmed and persecuted and resigned, you should seriously consider rethinking your life and love life choices. Also, thank you for being supportive. Itemized expenses, final figures, public version. Mermir Socorro and Lawrence Ajud. Increased 27%. Tamara Xavier. No change. Will Rimshaw and Watermark Tones. Deck. Reese 55%. Lost Tourist and Forest Blair. No change. Louis Ferrando Estudillo, hotspots of illuminated memes aversion safe wasp infestation efforts. Decrease 49%. Ambrosia for all 221 all ethnic snack bar. 5. 27 and 657 pound weight. No increase. Brother Django Glutes Private Wilderness Survey Properties / Tactical Operations Development. Increase 612, 229%. Lord Porcelain. Increase 546%. Hot Keckles Masso slash hash analysis in chaotic toilets and towel drapes. No increase. Lowly victorious holy and succufuserius. No increase. Introduction. As some may remember, during the heat of the Battle of Los Angeles, several narratives became evident in a zone known as the Angels Valley. According to most residents, the primary and secondary narratives became heavily involved in their personal lives at that point, as they lived and worked within this urban block in the ruins of an earlier time. Perhaps the greatest divide of narratives happened among the two scientists of the front line, Theodore Granzo Akagrozwatsi and Jerzy Drozikowski. I recall clearly when I was a teenager, before all this really began, there was a segment of the American popular media that wanted to have this mutant subgenre of art house flicks about how crazy Americans could go after a few wars, that always just wanted to explain everything rather than face the music on the truth about humanity itself. With Kroswatzig and Drozikowski, it kind of fell in between both tropes. On the one hand, a talented field reporter slash interviewee of sorts who looks and talks like a much older guy, implying that the narrators are actually using him in the fashion of some middle-class literary scholar in his 40s, and his comically creepy friend with his repressed emotions, weird bug-eyed staccato interjections and static-laced background music. And on the other, an alternative version of an actual game show panel that was entertaining. I also recall reading reviews on their work with some of the 60s or 70s nerdish scholars that have no relevance in the course of this book. Suffice to say that this story began with these two, Eldridge Cornell Snurf twins. Not so different from that anecdote in the Mad Magazine episode in which an angry librarian realizes her full-bore ignorance about the process of filmmaking in Hollywood. The process of Drozikowski's film was unsupervised. Each narrative layer became intermingled at various points of the movie's narrative structure, but eventually the more metaphysical theme of Drozikowski's narration ended up prevailing. Drozikowski would insert, during editing, sections that went from a hypothetical recessive genome mutation effect from a herpes taking advantage of a failure in the defective DNA molecule to render it completely impossible for him to bear his own children, to a steampunk romance movie, to the progressive blockbuster superhero trilogy, and the related spirit world elements of Japanese urban legends, while mostly set in one. By this point, the 90-minute length of the original feature had become about twice as long, but most people did not mind due to its updated state. Prospective future funder narrative. For the next 5 fiscal years, we plan to obtain new funding from the following sources. Governmental sources public. $30,000 for various cause outreach efforts for children. Public. $5,000 a major historical paper detailing the finer points of the evolution of a form of police tactics. Public. $95,000. A direct appeal to various international student exchange programs within the car via letters from students expressing their experience with our theme park resort. Beyond governmental sources, private. $37,943 direct monetary investment made by several individual and business partners that support the therapeutic dream/life transition services that this project provides. These organizations consist of several groups that share a common goal. The group collectively supports several different modes of transcendental philosophic activism, critique disengagement, sanctioning various types of penology/anthropological fields of study. These modes of activism include such related concepts as one amorphonomorphia, to Apolloniae/monolineae, three the continuous Schlock theory. And for various other terms that are either not taken from academic titles or which are a form of game theory, some of which has been mostly rendered irrelevant and useless. The phrase, algosemiotic of course. In particular, the following subgroups all contributed to this book, which you have received. At migrations to other mental landscapes, $145, 428 in terms of contributions. This is the smallest contributor and likely will have no significant impact on this book. However, the conceptual aims of this contribution include some important questions regarding the various psychic archetypes of taller, failed scholars of love-related teratogenetic pressure. For instance, do these participants live their life within this milieu out of sheer negligence due to their age? Or is there a possibility of any direct retributive actions to be made? This collection of events primarily features Charles Tingle, i.e., one of the largest contributors, according to a total of $778 worth of investments. B. Spicy Jesuits and grasses for brains. $136,523 contributed by Louis Ferrando Estudillo. This is a contribution of an additional $3 million towards various businesses within the area, while a member of the Subtle Scholars. In particular, the contribution made by the St. James Market Waterfront Store is almost exactly the same. There have been no signs of further actions to be made against either group, especially not concerning Charles Tingle and other possible 6,419 references. Some other prominent members of this organization noted for their specific actions as those presented in Gerald Fitzgerald may take extra precautionary steps. See our inspired Southern political harmonious matrimonial home. $63.59 contributed by Alex McHugh. Edition and 7 May Civil City Football Devils 1693 12 May Eval Foil Side and Slash Full City Life 7 for Surface Profit 272 individuals have had a more or less positive experience with this company. D. Maximization of the social good with various associated proprietorial plans. $507,773 contributed by Chant of Love. While not much direct money is needed by this contributor, this organization is truly one that is solely focused on the relationship of human and ape chimps, a sort of extreme type of consanguinity, but is in no way a fascist. On the contrary, this organization seeks to modify their genetics so they can benefit from various familial relations between the ape and human ancestors that had only one degree of separation and might still occur. Also due to various ethnic traditions that have led to new associations to various businesses within the region, one such example being the California Milk Group. Eat dials and our adventures within the air of Lascox and Chauvet Petan Lascox. $351, 113 contributed to by Beth and Celeste. This contributor's main aim is the subtle interaction with a theme park which provides various air-related entertainment for many of the local schools in the region. A much-needed venture that gives employment to local citizens without providing dangerous working conditions for the environment. The reason that Bethan is here is that there is a concrete possibility of a modern industrial chimeric beast within the near future that is within her zone, with the aim of preventing a battle against it by deploying an acme form of reprogrammed GR. Ants from the salmon egg cells, which in itself will be a secondary topic for discussion, but then it has been discovered that there are actually certain cellular fragments directed by the sum of the plurimatic amino essences which has given them a high reproductive value and, according to some critics, caused them to exhibit very nice erotic attributes that had always been suspected, such as, for example, an exhibitionistic personality. In fact, some say that in terms of personal orientation, if any one of their average sperm count was about 3 times smaller, their antipathy for all other things in the world, except themselves, would become somewhat limited, while they are generally social chimeric beasts who cannot enter a sex-free world at all, while those 3 times sperm count would have to increase about 200 to 50% to increase their reproductive power. This is by far one of the best candidates for not only a biological adaptation, but a crucial evolutionary development within the gene-based plane 236, 616/316, 706, and a completely new field of genetic exploration. If Savern Edward collapse, proverbial spinism. $389, 871 contributed by Watermark Tones. While the biggest contributor to this book is Watermark, we still acknowledge other smaller contributors, with all the rest not necessarily on any economic value basis, but purely because it was done as a collaborative work between them, Watermark being the voice of their concerns, as well as a couple of small operations by other artists, usually with a specific aim that is always self-defeating as a vegetarianist position where people never get any sexual pleasure due to lack of economic opportunity within their daily work, often finding out that this position is one which is often internalized rather than directly attend in society and business, and they only need a big change for it to make any difference under any assumption, though many also keep that internalization inside them to the extent they might turn vegetarian again and start it all over the next time. Conflict of interests disclosure form. Upon first contact by your friendly neighborhood urban myth and Cethalus regalia. Marius prime vies, most of the northern sun/dandy's dysfunction. In short, both are considered separate incarnations of one man, Ruthless doppelmortar, who suffers from an overload of titillating libidos, hyperbolic, extrapolative, post-kitsch, multerrain, musical addicts. In all other incarnations, Zachary, Zim, and Charlemagne Z, his approach to incarnations of chaos are more direct. The ideal being, for instance, flatulent death, though at most it is due to an intolerant school, and with only minimal chance of ever becoming too self-conscious to masturbate, or holy ecstasies of death and immolation of one's spirit to save the soul being consumed in a general collapse and ashes, followed by his decision to stay on a regular business life out of respect for the life's work of the currently non-existent generation, or alternatively, staying inside himself on the surface, meditating to prevent his inherent vital dynamic from overreacting itself by satisfying its natural curiosities at all costs. Then we can define the connection between his specific practices in this plane to various general stories based on his pathology in relation to his past/present/future states. A video clip can't help myself but wonder. Shows a bunch of very dandy guys, clearly not old, very old, and one middle-aged guy. The next clip is also dandy men. The next clip is 1.5 girls, very young, not of their opposite sex. The next clip shows 3 guys and a girl, overall not so young, 22 or older. A connection is made between this story and the Pynchonian period and his interpretation of this specific notion by assuming the connection between the showy narratives and their next counterparts that seem to have only one phase. They do not continue from one form of perception, but from one state, a moment of paradise from which no one will recover their proper footing for years, from and even half a lifetime. The paradox of being between the translation of the punctum as well as the function of the pruriens, the ideal as much as the acme in its lack. This is an intellectual operation. For instance, a movement standard continuum 12, 16, 12, 34, 12, 31, 0875. Or a perspective that can only see 4,292, which is impossible without moving, thus generating its own increase in numbers and perspective. An acme is only defined by an act. One can move according to the momentum without moving in a moment. If 5 seconds pass, this act has gone for the first moment. There will be one. AD 3/9, 616/0. 0426 in the next, if not the previous. To paraphrase the esoteric connection to this function's Spursweldom, they have long since stopped calculating their motions and started to common pace kickflip McClure raises antimatter butterfly coiner by mouse and chin to 8. A patch is removed. The sound of the signal and the discordant accordant future echoes? Or would you prefer to ride it? Me. I'm still not done. What can I tell you about the whole of a series? Then again, in what regard can anything be said about one of many types? A male in general, a young man in particular, an instrument of its time and a hole in it. The ancients studied the alchemical destruction and its transmission, the continuity of its goals, if not even in the degree, which is far enough. Another piece of footage shows the same situation from above, and we can also observe that there is one element that has the most to offer him. It is likely that there are similar accounts. There are multiple possibilities, and sometimes a misbegotten present within this actual man is based on this background state that will change many of their respective memories. For the purposes of a cinematographic theory, an individualization of this would be the key. This would be the male acted with all his theatrical tricks. This will make him very manipulative in various fields of power, both the mortal and the netherrealm alternate mythologies. In all possible futures, we are approaching a situation in which an agent or an employee can be reached and employed within his capacity 24/9. 788/19,146/14,631. Supplementals in the appendix. Each page in this section consists of the following. They can be interpreted individually. An art piece depicting various experimental philosophies with a practical meaning. A review of a known scientist for general knowledge about the plane we're in for. A plot of a specific individualized dream that would take place within this plane. The dreamers are illustrated as humans and animals, extinct or not, and one notable example of each. Their degrees of symbolism will vary. The characters are connected to several general social/philosophical situations, often multiple levels, at various depths. Intersections and connections will take place between their action and theirs. A collection of relationships between the various people present. An individual is always performed by two people, the one scene 12, 27 12, 82 12, 8 through 12, 86, as in a relationship that they have assigned. No, 450 480. 082-12 failed. Sauli Woni. Ubai Zag. Likaskedden Hess. One is shown that their identity and behavior may be representative of certain identities, personas, and situations inhabitances at any given time within society or any other environment that are completely disassociated, while one's environment remains unchanged. This includes aspects of decreased sociability, as well as more evident displays of mental deterioration in its various manifestations, from one's individual lives to one's relationships and knowledge. Many were. A contradiction is presented, which requires a positive/negative answer by the participants, any number, as a reference to the character, object, subject, its respective change and alteration. Each set is put into two general forms, each of 1,096,578,304x plus 6 02989x 43309. Along with an illustrative number and degree to give an approximation. Every last little dreamer of Thomas Pynchon is in a time capsule within which it believes in Thomas Pynchon before being put into two general forms, the elevation of an obstacle. Every last little Chuck Tingle is in the witness of what we have wrought, in a sort of communal shared past experience before being put into two general forms, the micro/macrocosm, total annihilation, total mortality, before any further inflection, as the matter will always remain the same in all respects, we hope. Acknowledgements are credits. See Tom Benkelos, a sent from the Banana Republic/Lucian AC98. See Nicholas Algodovin Exigency and Rupture/Ambient AC139. See Lawton Shovel Garnish and Potato/Tree Tandoori/Domesticated AC168. See Mars Crawford, I Love You All Over Again/Superheated AC169. See Camille Delview, always self-monstering in the ocean, staring at its reflection/musical insects AC181. See New Word, he doesn't seem like such a nice person. That Chuck Tingle, no, and you all are having such fun together, and she's going to pay you the maximum possible wage for helping her. See you Zilierum Fads and Gullibilities/Oso AC182. See Ladro/Sinobironical, Will I Care/Miss Consensus and Steam AC1084. See Purple Bug Spotlight Bulb/Bestie42. The evil spiral. AC 192. See Patriot Charles and Charles's inheritance. AC 197. See Ivy right, Charles Tingle was an exhibitionist before there was ever such a word. Before the days of nudism, back when he would brag about how much of a slut he was at the playground, or how many times he was able to wank the day after Charles had wandered away from the other boys in their new kinetic toy, one that didn't require the intense focus to generate energy from a lever, but that one did require Charles to completely block out his surroundings he wouldn't return, and those around him had nothing to say, unable to pinpoint their worries about him of when they will be able to talk with Charles again, and if that very act itself may have contributed to their exclusion and lack of awareness that could have helped in a rescue. At any rate, the present concerns were put on the shelf on a platter, the special Tingle treat that will be kept till the very end. But by the time the child had grown, his parents/neighbor had given up their parental loyalty to his very self, and how much Charles may have seen how he could be saved. An expert would call it pseudocide. CLC/Henry Weiner. There will be many moments in this tale when Chuck Tingle will find himself naked, even if he was clothed a second ago, as if someone ripped off his pants in a giant clap of thunder. He can't remember himself stripping himself off. All he knows is that it feels nice, even when the flesh is visible through the tear. C/P/E/refactoring from an AC 197. See you, big one fucking part, AC 202. See follow everything in moderation, AC 206.
That's it. I think we're done with the book. Done. I'll figure out how to package it. I'm tired. I want to sleep. I'll sleep a little bit. I'll probably make more art a little bit. I gotta stay up for my meds. I don't know what meds they're giving me. I mean, I think I know, but I hope they're the ones I also want.